Hey Aaron, how you going, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Recording in progress.
I'm going really, really well. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat to us today.
Of course.
Now, I've had a chance to sit down and watch the film, and I've got to say congratulations. This is an absolutely fantastic film.
Thank you so much.
So,
Nice to hear.
so tell us a little bit about where the idea came about for you for this film in the first place.
Yeah. Well, weirdly enough, it was originating at my honeymoon. During my honeymoon, I was married at a very late age of 37, and my wife was then 39. And in Israel, it's like like it's very old to get married at that age. So we went on a honeymoon and we wanted to compensate for all the years we weren't together and do everything we can do to compensate for those 20 years that we weren't together, right? So we saw movies that we never saw together. We went to countries we never got to see together. It was half a year of a honeymoon. And then, when we approached New York, I came with the idea to make a film about a man who comes out of jail after, 12 years, and he has only 1 year with his fiance left because she's dying from cancer. And that was the seed from which the entire film originated from. But because, it's not bipolar, but I have like a very complicated personality. On the one hand, I'm very romantic. On the other hand, I'm very dark. Very, I have very morbid and sense of humor, and I think a lot about death. And I think that's how the movie came to be, like a man who wants to give everything to the love of his life, but time doesn't allow it to happen, and also reality. So that was the way I thought of the film.
Now, I have to ask, did you actually start writing it while you were on your honeymoon? Because I know that my wife would not be very impressed if I started to work on a film idea while we were having a romantic time.
No, don't worry. No. When I'm like that's for me. When I'm romantic, I'm totally romantic. We just, we went out of a movie. I think it doesn't have anything to do with my movie. I think it was Lock with Tom Hardy. We were in Manhattan, went out of the theater, and then I was like, Lilac, that's the name of my wife. I have an idea for my next movie. And then I just told her, and that was it for the entire duration of the honeymoon. But when I came back, I sat down with both of my co-writers, Navot Papushado and Kai Mark, and we started tossing ideas about how to ruin, the romantic theme of the movie. How can we present curveballs to the protagonist to keep this entire odyssey intriguing and how do we make a thrill ride out of this honeymoon story?
You've also got that element, as you mentioned there as well, about your main character only having 12 months left with the person that he loves. How difficult was that for you to put yourself in that frame of mind and to write that out knowing what that character would be going through at that time?
It's very hard. I think a lot about it a lot. Because if you dissect, South of Heaven, at the end it's a story about, two people who want to live together, and and there's no good outcome, right? Because the person who dies leaves you behind, and it's really sad for both sides. So I'm also coming from a family, and also my wife's family. There's cancer in our families, and living with the cancer. My wife lost her brother at a very young age to cancer, and her mother passed away just before we started the pre-production for the film. And my mother has been diagnosed with cancer 20 years ago, and then it came back just before I went to shoot the movie. So for me, living with cancer, and even, is something that I live every day. Like everything that grows on my body, like a mole or something, or I just don't feel a little bit well, it's immediately there. So that's what I did when I wrote South of Heaven. I tried to write it from the perspective of a man who knows time is precious and it could go, every day of your life you could just fade away. And that was the reason I didn't want to portray my lead character, Evangeline Lilly, as someone who just, doesn't have anything positive to see, or just, think dark thoughts all day. I wanted her to be a ray of light and somebody who lives in the present, because I did notice that people that have cancer and are, handling it bravely like my mother does, and the late mother of my wife, they seem to want to live without feeling the weight of the disease every day, and they have this positivity to them that sometimes healthy people don't have. And that's the moment when I knew how I should relate to the character in the movie, and it was hard. I won't say it wasn't hard. Dealing with the subject that is very close to you is hard.
Do you think there'll be a lot more people out there in the world as well that will understand this film because of what's happened over the last 2 years? We've had a pandemic where people have lost family members that they would never have expected to have lost at that age and things like that. But also people have had their lives taken away from them with lockdowns and things like that as well. Do you think a lot more people will go into this film with a better understanding of what the characters are going through because of how they've lived the last couple of years?
That's a wonderful question. I think so. I think, yeah, because, while I was working on it, like I was filming before, I finished filming the movie 4 days before COVID hit the US, so I was lucky to finish the shoot. But I started editing it a day before Manhattan went on lockdown, and I was editing there. So I was like, and then while editing, it became even a sadder movie for me, more bleaker. It's more bleak now, and it has an understanding and grasp of the fragility of life, during COVID without even dealing with COVID. And and I think so. I think that people that will see the movie today will go out of it, or, stop when they finish watching it, they will feel that the most important thing that I wanted to relate to the audience, which is the preciousness of time you spent with one another. And I don't want to ruin the ending, but in the end, it's just a question of, it's always the same question with couples or families. Somebody's going to leave the world first. And it doesn't matter who leaves the world first. It's tragic, and it's heartbreaking, and you can't escape it. So I think because that's one of the strongest themes of South of Heaven, I do feel that it will resonate even more with people that are, having tragedy due to COVID.
Definitely. Now, the character of Jimmy, he is such a fascinating character, and Jason Sudeikis does an amazing job playing the role. Was Jason someone that you saw for Jimmy from the very start, or was he someone who came into the picture a little bit later for you?
No, you have your list, you have your, your ideas. But for me, I like to cast against type. I don't like when you do it very mundane casting. I did it also with my previous films in Israel. I took comedians to play, avenging angels in Big Bad Wolves. So for me, it's not that out of the box to think of a comedian or somebody who mainly did comedy and romantic comedies for the role of Jimmy. But what I did want to do with Jason, who came very early on to the movie, is Jimmy is not your typical action guy. And sometimes I see that people think South of Heaven is supposed to be some kind of a John Wick kind of movie. But I wrote the anti John Wick kind of movie. I'm against violence, and I'm against I like John Wick movies, I won't say that, but I enjoy them like everybody else. But I wanted to make something from my heart, and it was very important to me to take an actor who is not an action, star, into this role because Jason has this, down to earth kind of persona. He has those big puppy eyes that you just want to hug. You want to hug him and you want to shelter him. You don't want to have anything bad happen to him. And I knew that just the position of taking a very nice actor that everybody loves and putting him in such a dark role will have something, like chemistry, something interesting will happen, because you know what you'll get if you take the sort of actors that will always play those characters, but you never know what an actor like Jason Sudeikis could bring to the table, and what that meeting between him and this kind of part will result in. And I think that the outcome is amazing. I think Jason is heartbreaking in this film for me, like whenever I watch it.
Definitely, I agree. And what was Jason's reaction when you first went to him with this film? Was he hesitant at all, or was he excited about being offered a role like this?
No, he was over the moon, because I think it was just before I casted him before. I think even Ted Lasso. I think he just started writing the first season of Ted Lasso, but it wasn't a thing. And I learned that he was looking for scripts that will take him out of his, regular, he was looking for something out of the box for himself to change some pace, to show more depth to his abilities. And he's a great actor. So when we sent him the script together with our movie Big Bad Wolves, he was like over the moon, because he knew this will be something that he never, done before. And I don't think, it's very hard for actors in Hollywood, and I know it firsthand, to break that ceiling where, people expect them to do the same thing and the same shtick over and over again. And Jason has layers, and I think, you see it in Ted Lasso. If it wasn't for Ted Lasso, I think nobody would know how much depth and how much feeling Jason Sudeikis can convey in a scene. And I think that I think South of Heaven met him in a very special time in his life, and he brought everything to the table.
Was Evangeline also on your list from the very start? Because she puts in an amazing performance here as well, and if so, what was it about her that made you know that she was perfect for the role?
Evangeline was on my list. Yeah, I always wanted to work with her ever since. Everybody's a fan of Lost and fell in love with her.
Yeah.
I was like very young, and she was like, okay, I'm going to marry somebody like Evangeline one day. So yeah, she was on my list, and Jason loved her for the role. So and when I think the most interesting thing happened with Evangeline, because you think that Evangeline is the kind of actress that always look for just those hard, tough characters, the warrior princess, because that's mainly what she did in Hollywood. But then in a conversation with her, I learned that she was always looking for some character, some part that will show the other side of her, because she's very funny in real life. She's like a hoot, and her favorite film is Annie Hall. And when she saw that the character's name is Annie, and that the character herself has so many layers to her, she's laughing and she's sad, and she could be she could be tough, but she could be reasonable, so she told me that she never met a writer and a director that allows for a female character to be all the things in the same movie. She said they always have to choose. She said, you male directors always have to choose. We're either their nurturing mother, or the love interest, or a sex symbol or something like that. But in your movie, in your script, there's something that allows me to show so many layers of my real personality that I have to make this movie. And she fell in love with the moment in the movie where she says, cancer, dying makes you bipolar, because that's how she plays Annie. She's like, she has those moods, and she's laughing and then crying, and then she's tough, but then she's fragile. And she really loved the work on this film, on the script, and it was an amazing journey for us together.
Definitely. Well, mate, we are right out of time, so I just want to say again, congratulations on such a fantastic film, and I can't wait to check out your next film as well.
Thank you so much, Dave. Have a great day.